Welcome to Exposing Workplace Bullying, where we pull back the curtain and have real conversations about workplace abuse. This is episode 31, Operation Digital Terrain. I'm your host, Dr. Jan Kircher. Most of us spend a large part of our lives working. For me, it started when I was about 10 years old, delivering newspapers on Sunday. Since then, I've worked a variety of jobs: retail, waiting tables, hospitality, and much of my career was spent in social work and higher education. Over the years, I've watched work undergo a remarkable transformation, not just in what people do, but in the way work is organized, performed, communicated, and experienced. Technology, or what I call the digital terrain, has been a major driver of that transformation. Suddenly, work was no longer confined to a particular place or time. It could reach me more often in more ways than ever before. Early in my career, if you wanted to contact me, you called my office. If I was there, we talked. If I wasn't, someone took a message and left it in my mailbox for me to return your call later. Most communication happened in real time, face-to-face or over the phone. Then came answering machines and voicemail. You could leave a message that I could retrieve even when I wasn't in the office. Each step and advancement made me a little more reachable and a little more accessible to work, even when I wasn't working. The expectation that I would check my messages wasn't explicit. It was subtle, but it was there. But the real shift came with Wi-Fi, smartphones, tablets, and constant internet access. For the first time, the technology that connected me to work was with me almost all the time. Work could reach me wherever I was because I always have a mobile device with me. I could be shopping for groceries on a Saturday, and a colleague could text me. Supervisors could email at 3 a.m., and employers increasingly expected work apps and email to live on my personal phone, which made me reachable around the clock. The expectation wasn't just availability. It was also responsiveness. If a message came in on my mobile phone, there was often an unspoken expectation that I would acknowledge it and reply without much delay. If I didn't, I would hear about it the next day. The boundaries that once separated work from the rest of my life began to blur. As the digital terrain expanded, bullying didn't stay in hallways or meetings. It no longer depended on physical proximity. It moved into email, Slack, Google Meet, project management comments, chat threads, and DMs. The access points multiplied. The shift wasn't about inventing new behaviors. It was about removing limits. Gaslighting, exclusion, intimidation, excessive monitoring, and humiliation could now reach you through every tool tied to your job. Digital bullying is workplace bullying delivered through digital systems, faster, more frequent, and harder to escape. It can hit you through email, messaging apps, and shared documents and workplace platforms, whether you're at your desk or sitting in your own home. The digital terrain changed the way bullying occurs, but it didn't change the need for workplace self-defense. If anything, it made it even more important because work and personal life no longer have the clear boundaries they once did. Today, you have to set those boundaries yourself. When you're being bullied, those boundaries become critical to taking care of yourself and reducing the traumatic effects of workplace bullying. One of the simplest places to start is with access. Do you really need your work email or workplace apps on your personal phone and personal devices? If there isn't a policy requiring it, and you're not being paid to monitor those systems outside of work hours, you may be doing work without compensation. You're also making yourself more accessible than you need to be. If you're being abused at work, that increased accessibility creates more opportunities for the bullies involved to reach you outside of the workplace. Clear boundaries don't stop workplace bullying, but they can reduce the opportunities your bullies have to reach you outside of work, and that limits your exposure to further abuse. Now, I realize some people are thinking, Jan, that's not realistic. I need access to my work email and all my work apps. And yes, there are certainly jobs where accessing work email and having your workplace apps on your phone is necessary. But there's a difference between accessing work when necessary and allowing work to have a constant presence in your personal life and on your personal devices. If you need to check your email, you can log in from a personal computer when necessary. That doesn't mean you need work email, messaging platforms, and workplace apps constantly running on a device that's with you 24 hours a day. Workplace self-defense is about reducing that exposure. Limiting how easily your bully can reach you is one way to do that. If you're already being bullied at work, why make it easier for that behavior to follow you home? For me, I wasn't willing to give my bully unlimited access to me. In all the years that I worked, I never once put work email or work apps on my personal phone. Did I get pushback from supervisors and from my bullies? Yes, sure I did. One of my supervisors, who was a bully, wrote it up in my evaluation that I was not accessible. I responded in writing and asked him to show me the policy requiring employees to have work email or workplace apps on their personal devices. Of course, there wasn't one. As a result, there was nothing they could do. Although it didn't stop them from using that as just another way to bully and intimidate me. I was accessible. If I needed to check my email, I used my computer. What I declined to do was give work, and particularly the people who were bullying me, access to me through my own personal phone. That was just something I wasn't willing to do. For me, it was about setting definitive boundaries between work and home. And when you're dealing with workplace bullying, boundaries matter. In the digital terrain, those boundaries become a form of workplace self-defense that protect you. But boundaries are only one part of workplace self-defense. To protect yourself, you need to first understand the nature of the threat you're facing. Whether bullying occurs in person or online, the first step remains the same: threat assessment. The digital terrain changes the environment, but it doesn't change the need to understand your risk and vulnerability. Then comes ground control. Make sure you're in control of yourself, even in the digital terrain. Don't react. Don't panic. Don't fire off an emotional response. Remain calm. Only then should you decide on what strategy comes next. And one of those strategies is simple. You don't have to respond every time a bully says or does something in the digital terrain. If it's work-related, respond. If it's not, and it's only bullying, document it and move on. The challenge is that you'll feel the pull to respond. You'll want to defend yourself, correct misinformation, explain your actions, or point out that they're wrong. And look, I understand that temptation because I felt it myself. The problem is that being right and convincing a bully that you are right are two very different things. When I engaged through email and other digital communications, I was often right. But when I got caught up in the back and forth, I wasn't changing the mind of any bully or proving to them I was right. I was simply creating more opportunities for them to continue the abuse. What I was doing was actually making it worse for myself, not better. And I know that is a difficult reality to accept because responding often feels like you're doing something. It feels like you're standing your ground instead of just taking it. I understand the impulse because I've felt it too. Right now, you're in workplace survival mode. You're just trying to get through each day by doing what you've done yesterday and trying to survive the day with as little bullying as possible. But doing more of what hasn't worked won't create a different outcome. If you want a different outcome, you have to be willing to change what you're doing. That's why workplace self-defense matters. Workplace self-defense is about moving you out of workplace survival mode and into responding with clarity, self-trust, and deliberate action. The strategies that you choose matter. And sometimes the best strategy is not engaging at all. But when you have to engage, you need to remember a few things that are unique to the digital terrain. First, digital communication creates a record. That's great when you're documenting workplace bullying because you can just file that digital communication into a folder. But remember, your responses create a record too. Emails, texts, chat messages, and comments can all be saved, forwarded, screenshot, and used against you later. Second, digital environment to strip away many of the cues we rely on in face-to-face conversations. Facial expressions, tone of voice, and body language. As a result, the potential increases for misunderstanding, manipulation, and misinterpretation. Just as importantly, you're often interpreting the message through your own emotional state. And when you're being bullied, a message from a bully can trigger an emotional reaction before you've even read it. That's why threat assessment and ground control matter. Threat assessment helps you determine whether the communication actually poses a threat to you and how significant that threat is. Ground control helps ensure that you respond to the communication rather than react emotionally to it. A message on Slack from Bob asking, "Can you send me your budget report?" presents a different level of risk than a message from Bob saying, "You failed to turn in your budget report," with your supervisor and several coworkers copied on that email. Different levels of threat require different workplace self-defense strategies. Thirdly, the digital terrain conditions us to respond immediately. A notification appears and we feel pressure to answer right away. But workplace self-defense requires the opposite approach. Slow it down, assess the threat, establish ground control, then decide whether a response is even necessary, and figure out what is the best strategy to use. Finally, how and what you say matters in digital communication. Unfortunately, most of us were never taught how to write professionally in these environments. Even fewer of us know how to write emails, messages, comments, and responses that protect us when workplace bullying is involved. Yet writing is one of the most important workplace self-defense skills in the digital terrain. The words you choose can either reduce your risk or increase it. Let me give you a few practical guidelines. We'll start with one of my favorites. Proofread, proofread, proofread. And when you think it's good, proofread it again. If you can, read it out loud before you send it. Reading it out loud helps you catch mistakes and gives you a better sense of how the message may come across to the person receiving it. Misspelling a word or leaving out a word can change the entire meaning of your message. You might send an email to Bob that says this: "Hi, Bob. Thank you for your email. As I previously stated, I didn't submit the budget report on June 20th. Thanks, Jan." But what you meant to say was this: "Hi, Bob. Thank you for your email. As I previously stated, I did submit the budget report on June 20th. Thanks, Jan." A single incorrect word can completely change the meaning of your message. In this case, the difference between did and didn't completely reverses the meaning. Proofreading helps you catch mistakes like that before they create unnecessary problems and additional bullying. Remember what my dad used to say: less is more. Keep your messages concise and focused on the issue in front of you. Don't bring other issues in unless they are related or relevant to the matter at hand. Make sure you stick to the facts and stay as far away from emotional language as you possibly can. And if you're not sure about the message, either what you're saying or how you're saying it, don't send it right away. Let it sit for a bit. Come back to it later and read it again. You can decide whether you need to revise it, shorten it, or delete it. Remember, very few messages require an immediate response. It's okay to pause, think, and decide on the best course of action. You must also assume that anything you write will eventually be forwarded, copied, screenshot, or read by someone other than the person you sent it to. So write accordingly and with caution. Finally, sometimes the smartest thing you can do when you're being bullied is actually put something in writing. A well-written email can clarify expectations, establish boundaries, and create a record of what actually happened. The goal is not to engage more. The goal is to communicate with purpose and using digital communication in ways that help protect you rather than expose you to more bullying. That means being very intentional and deliberate with how you respond digitally. You do not need to invent an entirely new approach for the digital terrain. Many verbal workplace self-defense strategies can be adapted to digital communication. Take the broken record method, for example. It works just as well in an email as it does in a face-to-face conversation. Let's say Bob keeps messaging you on Slack and he's questioning whether your report was submitted. Instead of writing a long explanation, you stay focused on the relevant fact that the report was submitted by you on June 15th to your supervisor. When that doesn't satisfy Bob and he messages you again, you reply, "The report was submitted on June 15th to my supervisor, Brianna." If it comes up a third time, "The report was submitted on June 15th to my supervisor, Brianna." You can rinse and repeat that statement as many times as necessary. You don't need to defend yourself. You stay focused on the issue you are addressing. It's that simple. You don't get caught up in the bullying. The same is true for other verbal strategies like the sandwich method and microscripts. You can use those singly or together. The environment may be different, but the strategy remains the same. For example, if Bob sends you an accusatory email or criticizes you, you do not necessarily need to write a long response. Instead, you can pull out a microscript. "Thank you, Bob," or even, "Okay." Sometimes a brief professional response is all that's needed, nothing more. The strategy is the same whether Bob is saying it in a meeting, on the phone, or in an email. Figuring out what to type every single time is exhausting. Some days you're staring at a blank screen, knowing exactly what the problem is, but not having the words ready. When bullying keeps coming through digital channels, that pressure adds up fast. That's why I built plug-and-play templates into my written workplace self-defense book. They cover a wide range of situations, from neutral workplace communication to more difficult conversations. Instead of staring at a blank screen trying to figure out what to say, you can pull out a template and put it to work immediately. It saves you time, reduces stress, and helps you respond in ways that protect you rather than expose you to more bullying. You can find it on my shop at stopbullyculture.com/shop. The link is also in the episode description. But digital communication has its limits, and it's easy to get pulled into a never-ending digital exchange with your bully. You respond, the bully responds, you respond again, and the exchange just keeps going. There comes a time when you have to recognize that the digital conversation is no longer productive. And your digital workplace self-defense strategy must be to take the exchange offline and force a face-to-face conversation. Yes, face-to-face conversations still have immense value. Email chains can go on for weeks without resolving anything, but a direct conversation often brings clarity much faster. The reality is that digital bullying wears you down because it doesn't stop. It follows you home, cuts into your off hours, and keeps the pressure going long after your workday ends. Workplace self-defense interrupts that cycle. It gives you structure where the bullying has none. Instead of reacting to every message, every ping, every shift in tone, you're choosing your timing. You're choosing your boundaries and your level of engagement. You're reducing the openings the bully can use. You're protecting your attention, your energy, and your nervous system. That shift matters. It moves you out of survival mode and back into a position where you can think clearly, make decisions, and stay grounded even when the bullying doesn't stop. But self-defense doesn't give you control over everything. Some parts of bullying fall outside of your influence. Some tactics escalate in ways you never saw coming. And when that happens, you reach a point where the situation changes, whether you're ready or not. That's where we're going next in episode 32, the point of no return. This podcast is independently funded. Consider supporting at stopbullyculture.com/support. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. If this episode hits home, check out stopbullyculture.com, where I share tools, resources, and real talk to help you deal with workplace abuse. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, share it with them. Until next time.
They gaslight and plot, play their games. Witness the smile, you're part of the shame. Your boss stays silent, closing the door. How many voices will they ignore? The bully lies, the brave get burned. The office watches, no lessons learned. Your boss hides, truth gets colder. It's time to stop the bully culture.